My Friend Hasn't Been the Same Since His Camping Trip, Part 2, by Blackwings16. If you haven't heard the first part of the hell that has become my life, you can check it out here. If you've already heard it, here we go with the next bit. I would like to thank everyone for pitching their ideas about what is happening to B and what I should do. Anyway, the past day has been a nightmare. After being locked in my room for hours, watching and listening to anything suspicious in my immediate area, I somehow fell asleep at my desk. When I woke up, I assumed it was just a dream, because it made no sense. I mean, how could it? I went about my morning like any other. Showered, played some Fortnite, and ate some breakfast. It wasn't until I looked down at my phone that I started to get slightly nervous. It was a text from B's girlfriend, who I will be referring to as L now. It read, "Yeah, right after you and T left, B said he was gonna catch up to you guys and ask for a ride. I just assumed that you gave him one cause he didn't come back." Now the pieces of last night were coming back to me, feeling less like a dream and more like a true life nightmare. I forgot that I texted L back asking what she was talking about the night before. After reading her text, I decided to go and check on B. As I began to head down to the door, my mom came up to me asking where Scout, our cat, had gone. Scout loved to run out our front door whenever he had the opportunity, but he always came back after a while because he wasn't bred for the outdoors. I told her that he probably got out last night and would be back soon. She accepted my answer and I started to make my way to my car. Before I even left my house, I could see through the front door that my car had deep scratches on its roof and coming down the driver's side door. Now I was really freaking out. That was the exact spot where B/the devil himself climbed down. I kept trying to come up with a rational explanation for it, but nothing sufficed. The scratches were just too big and deep for an animal in the area to do so. I stepped into my car and was greeted by an awful smell. I had to step out due to it and began to gag from disgust. I looked through my back windows to try to find where the smell was coming from. After a few moments of searching, I could make out a patch of fur on the seat behind the driver's seat. I opened the door and braced myself for the foulness. My heart stopped. Tears started to form in my eyes as I immediately recognized who this deceased animal was. It was Scout. I could tell in an instant because he looked somewhat the same. The only thing off was the slit across his stomach. That revealed he had no internal organs or bones. I'm serious. It was like they had never existed at all, just leaving the cold, lifeless shell of what used to be my cat. I sat down outside of my car in sadness and confusion. The only thing that could have taken Scout as prey was a coyote, but they don't leave many scraps. My house was also fenced in, so it's very unlikely that something was able to squeeze in. There was also the fact that he was in my back seat. Now, that was the most concerning thing. There was no way he could have been there by chance. No, he was there by choice. Something put him in there, and I now have a suspicion of what. It had to be that hellish thing from last night. I had come to terms that what had happened last night was real, and I went from scared to angry, given that my cat was gutted in my back seat and left there as if to taunt me. I cleaned out my car and sprayed what felt like a gallon of air freshener on the back seat. I haven't told my mom yet, but that can wait. I also wanted to save her the heartbreak. Also, I was too angry to think about anything else other than getting answers. I drove to B's house in hopes of finding what had happened to him. Driving to his house, I began to think of what I should say to B. I can't just accuse him of being some monster that killed my cat. No, I had to be calm and rational. I figured that I would try to get him to open up about his trip. I have a feeling that something happened on it, and it has changed him. For the better or worst, has still yet to be determined. I arrived at his house in no time and frantically pounded on his front door. It felt like 10 minutes had gone by before he answered the door. As the door slowly creaked open, I was prepared to berate him with questions, but I was stopped dead in my tracks. He looked absolutely awful, as if he had just come down with yellow fever. Man, Dude, what happened to you? I asked. Now is not a good time. I feel like death, he said weakly. He began to close the door, but I placed my foot in front of it to block it. We need to talk. You've been acting different ever since you got back. Not to mention you have hardly talked about your month-long forest adventure to us, I said. There's not much to talk about, he said with a worried look in his eye. It was about 5 minutes of back-and-forth conversation between us until he agreed to let me come in. We both sat on the couch opposite each other. There was a long period of silence before I spoke up and said, "Tell me about your trip. That's why we hung out last night, but you hardly spoke about it. And you've been acting weird, man. Please, I just want to help if there's anything wrong that happened." That's when I met with a response I was not expecting. I stumbled upon something's feeding ground on my solo night, he said in a monotone, emotionless voice. Again, he wasn't making eye contact with me. The look on his face was so emotionally torn, it was as if I was talking to someone with PTSD from World War II. What do you mean, like a bear or something? I asked. No, there were carcasses everywhere, hanging from trees, piled up on the ground. There were even human bodies. They were almost unrecognizable due to the ravaged damage done to their bodies, he said again emotionlessly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I don't know what scared me the most. The fact that he saw dead human bodies, or the fact that he talked about them so monotone, like that they were the least of his worries. He spoke up again. I walked through whatever den I had clearly stumbled upon and tried to move far away from it. As I was about to walk into a clearing, I saw something in the tree above me. I don't know what it was, but it jumped down and attacked me. I had my bear spray, but wasn't able to use it in time. I didn't get a good look at the thing, but it bit me and then quickly ran off. It didn't seem to want to kill me, but I can guess why, he said. What do you mean you can guess why? I asked. I ran away pretty fast from that encounter, confused mostly because I couldn't really see what it was. It was too dark. I did see 2 red lights, however, which was strange to me because I was in the middle of the wilderness. The only facial features I could make out was a large scar on this thing's cheek. I treated the wound, which wasn't too bad, but enough to make me head back to the rest of my group, ending my solo night. On my way back, I avoided whatever's feeding ground that was, but I still came across a body, a human body. It looked like it had been dead for only a few hours. Before I walked away, I saw a large scar on its cheek, which looked very familiar. I don't know if it was exhaustion or panic from the events of the night, but I blacked out, he said. Look, I don't want to talk about this right now. I don't feel up to it. I just want to get some rest, he said softly. I was terrified. I have never heard something so horrible be spoken about like it was a stroll in the park. He is clearly not telling me something, but I decided to give it a rest for now. After a moment of silence, I regained my thoughts and found the composure to speak. How about this, I said. You talk about what happened when you feel like you want to, but until then, we can hang out and play Fortnite and watch some TV. And for the first time since he had been back, I saw him smile a little. It was subtle, but it filled me with a bit of relief. As the day went on, we did exactly what we had planned. It was about 10 p.m. now, and I'm writing this while B gets ready for bed upstairs. Wait. Okay, something terrifying just echoed throughout the house. It is the most demonic-sounding roar I have ever heard. And I just heard a window break upstairs. I'm now hiding in B's basement. I'll try to update this if I make it out of whatever I just got myself into. Wish me luck.